greenhouse, and I have been very busy over the last several weeks. I have been potting up my tomatoes into 2-litre pots, which are about 6 inches across at the top and about 6 inches deep. They might even be slightly bigger than that actually. But they are growing very well. I've got most of my tomatoes in the greenhouse, but I've got a few outside. Now I've got one tomato left to put into a pot, so I thought I would show you how I do that. They're not all as tall as the ones here because I did these ones first, and then I've got a few more in the other greenhouse and they're slightly smaller, but they will all catch up with each other. Some of them have started to get little fruits on them. I've got lots of flowers on them, and they are doing really well. So whether you are growing your tomatoes in pots undercover in a polytunnel or in a greenhouse, or whether you are growing them outside, now in June and July is the time to make sure that you get them out. So let me show you how I pot mine into 2-litre pots. So here I've got a 2-litre pot. I tend to find that 2-litre pots are perfect because with the trays that I use I can fit 2 in one tray. If I have them any bigger, then I can't fit 2 in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place some compost in the bottom. There goes an emergency vehicle. Okay, so I've put in a couple of inches, or about, most probably about an inch of compost in the bottom there. And I am then going to get this tomato out. This tomato has been desperate to get out into a bigger pot, but I've just been so busy I haven't had a chance to. But hopefully you can see that it started to produce some tomatoes, and there are lots of other flowers coming as well. Now, to get your tomato out of the pot, you need to place a couple of fingers either side of the stem and just to hold it firmly into place. Tip it upside down and give it a tap on the bottom and a bit of a squeeze, and hopefully the pot should come off very well. Now you can see that the roots are doing really well and that they now need to go into a bigger pot. So I'm going to put this plant in the center of the pot like this. So here it is in the center of the pot. I've put it quite a long way down. Tomatoes can be planted in deep. Even if you plant a tomato plant out into the ground, always make sure that you plant the tomato about an inch deeper than it is in the soil here, and that way it will make sure that it's nice and sturdy as it grows. All I need to do now is to fill in any gaps with more multi-purpose compost, and when you filled the pot, give it a gentle but firm pat down, just like that. Now there are some little side shoots here, and let me explain about side shoots. If you are growing bush tomatoes, you do not need to side shoot, but if you are growing the tall ones, you will. Now the way to see what the side shoots are basically extra growth, that they're suckers and they'll take a load of energy away from the plant. So you need to remove them. Now you've got the stem, the main stem, coming up here like this. And off of that main stem, you will then have you'll have like a leaf stem, or you might even have a tomato stem here. Now in between either of those, the main stem and the leaf stem or the tomato stem, there is going to be, or there might be, a little shoot. That is the side shoot. All you need to do is to pinch it off. Now once you've pinched one off, you will get another one that grows, so you have to check all the time. So we'll then just follow the stem up again, There's a leaf there. Here is the main stem, so this is a side shoot as well. So if you can't snip them off, if you can't sort of break them off with your nails, you can always get a pair of scissors or secateurs to remove. I'll have to do that with that one, but I'll carry on up the stem. There are some tomatoes, hopefully you can see that, but there are no more there. So I would just keep an eye on the side shoots as they grow. So I'll just nip this one off. I will need some scissors and then we're going to put it in the greenhouse. Now, because tomatoes need support, what I've done is I've put a stick in to the pot and I have attached it with some garden twine to the top of the frame here, so that it moves a little bit but it's actually quite well supported. I tend to do this every year, and if you tie the stick to the frame then it's really useful actually. So if you're able to do something like this, then it's always good. Now, if you are planting them outside, again, you will need to put a stick in, but you will need to push that stick down as far as you can, because the tomatoes, oh, excuse me, sorry, hurting my feet. The tomatoes, when they start to ripen, will actually get very, very heavy. And if the structure, the support structure for your tomatoes isn't strong enough, then the plant will just fall over. So if you're able to attach them to your staging in your greenhouse, then brilliant. If you can't, I'm sure you've got another way that you can do yours and it works very well. You then need to make sure that you very, very carefully attach the tomato plant to the stick, because there's no point having a stick if you haven't attached the tomato to it. Don't do this too tightly, because remember, the stem is quite thin at the moment, and as the plant gets bigger, the stem will get fatter. So you don't want to tie the string too tightly, otherwise it'll start to cut into the side of the tomato and then the tomato might die. So very, very loosely put the string round the tomato and round the stick, so that it's got space to grow, lots of space to grow, and then just tie your string together, just a couple of knots just to hold it firmly. As this plant grows, then I will attach another one a little bit further up and then a little bit further up as it grows. But that is the last tomato, so I will now make sure that I've watered them properly. Now they're in pots, you can water them from the bottom, and I would suggest you do this because then the water gets soaked and pulled up through the compost and it encourages the roots to grow down. So that's what I'll do now. Because they're in the greenhouse, it gets very hot in there, so you need to make sure that you check the water in the trays every day. I'm half filling the trays with water, and then once that's gone, then I will put some more in. You don't want to keep them wet all the time. You do want them to sort of absorb all that water and then fill it up again. Don't let them go too dry and then give them a load of water, because that's why the tomatoes' skin will then suddenly split. So just regular water, just keep an eye on them. So that's my tomatoes. They're all done now. And here is one of the tomato plants that I've got growing outside. I've got a few in this bed. If you are growing your tomatoes outside, then I would suggest that you plant them at least 18 inches apart, maybe 2 foot if you have the space, but 18 inches apart should be absolutely fine. As I say, when I dug this hole for them, I put them much lower, a good inch if you can, another maybe 2 inches lower in the soil than they were in the pot, and then make sure that you've attached them to a stick and they are very, very secure when they grow up. I've got these attached, I think it's to about a 6 foot cane. I did them to a small one to start with, and then I had to go and buy some bigger ones because I didn't have the bigger ones. So it's now in the compost, the big stick is in the soil about 9 inches, and it's about a 6-foot stick. So this will grow up beautifully. As you can see, it's got some lovely flowers on it. It's started to get its fruit on. Yes, its stem is a little bit wonky, but that will gradually straighten up as it grows. So that's my tomatoes inside and out. Well, that's all my tomatoes in now. As you can see, hopefully, that the beds are filling up really, really well. Summer is definitely here, and all the plants are responding well to this beautiful weather. Make sure that you water them well. You don't need to, it's best to water them thoroughly. So I would suggest doing that twice a week. If you water at the base of the plant, then the water will go straight down into the roots and exactly where it's needed. Try not to water at the height of the day. It's always best to try and water later on in the evening when the temperatures started to cool down, because that way the water will go straight down into the soil, straight down into the roots, and overnight the plant can then absorb all that water. If you water during the day, a lot of the water will then get evaporated up into the atmosphere and it won't go down into where it is needed. And also you could possibly burn the leaves of your plants if it's really, really hot, especially if they are growing in a greenhouse, because it's just so hot the sun will come in and burn the leaves very, very easily. So that's my tomatoes, they're all in. I've still got a few more bits to do, so I hope you found that interesting, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.